gentlemen, thank you. It's now the time we've all been waiting for, the speeches. So I guarantee you will not be as long as in previous years. That's the first bit of news. The second bit of good news is that I have to introduce Seb Taylor. Seb has Seb left Habs in 2002 to read history in Birmingham, fellow alumnus speaks, and he's forging a successful career at the leading law firm Herbert Smith Freehills. He became captain of the OHRFC First 15 in 2010, and rightly describes himself as determined, committed, and loyal. I noticed follow left on the OHRFC. To call the recent history of the club successful is rather like saying Bill Gates is fairly well off. The team has been promoted 4 times in 4 years and is now sitting in the London 1 North League. And they were Rugby World's Team of the Month in September just gone. They've just finished the season in mid-table security, having won 13 and lost 13. A fine result in anyone's book, but all the more remarkable when you consider the team's unique strategy, namely, they don't train. And I can assure you that I take the same approach too. Even tonight, Seb is leading a mini squad from the club, and so, to propose the toast to the company, governors and school, will you please show your appreciation for Seb Taylor.
Mr. President, First Warden, honoured guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your kind words, Andrew, and the invitation to speak here today. I feel like you've already done my speech for me, which is a bit of a pain in the arse. It's a long time since I gave a speech to anyone outside of the rugby fraternity, and I would usually draw extreme confidence from the fact that my audience is completely smashed. So this is a slightly more daunting occasion. So to kick things off, I'd like to take wine with everyone who has played rugby at Elstree.
Crowd on your side.
I joined the school in 1994 after a 3-year secondment to Stockholm, courtesy of my Swedish mother, and it was a bit of a shock to the system to return to school uniforms and the proper application of discipline. I'm equally shocked tonight to see the person who applied that discipline, Mr. Carlton, sitting right here. I think the last time I saw him, he screamed at me for being late to assembly, so... It took me a few years to find my feet at school, and it may surprise some of my teammates to know that I am by nature a very shy person. But being completely honest, it was the school that gave me the instruments to provide me with the confidence to push on and get past that shyness. Rugby has always been my passion in life, courtesy of my Welsh father, who you may see around you looking like some sort of snatch villain. I'm indebted to the coaching I received from many of the masters at the school. Former Welsh international wing Clive Rees, who used to run rings round us at training in his Wellington boots. Former changing room contestant Ian Rice, and in particular former England under-21 international Ali Metcalf. Thank you very much to those who aren't here tonight for everything they did for me and my rugby career. Looking back on my school years, my worst memory was playing at the Sedbertens thanks to Al Metcalf, who forced us to play a game in what can only be described as horrific conditions, driving snow, minus 10 degrees. We ditched our traditional warm-up and all we did was huddled round, and not in a big huddle, literally like penguins in the Arctic. And the only thing that got us on the pitch that day was a rousing rendition of Jerusalem, which went down in folklore for us. My best memory of school rugby was dispatching a very, very confident Pinetown High School rugby team on the High Veld of South Africa. It was particularly satisfying given the previous evening we'd sat around with the parents that we were staying with, and I'd been interrogated by this big Boer warrior who said to me, "All right, eh? Do you think you boys have got a chance tomorrow, eh?" I said, "Yeah, we've got a good team. We've definitely got a chance." "I don't think you boys have got a chance in hell, eh? My boy's much bigger than you, eh?" That was that. Speaking of big guys, my first memory of playing for Old Habs was lacing up my boots in the Old Habs changing room at Croxdale Road next to the aforementioned daunting physical presence of Al Metcalf. I remember being determined to do him proud that day and earn his respect on the field. To be honest, I have no idea whether I achieved that goal or who won that day, but the game and the beers in the clubhouse afterwards made me realise I'd found my spiritual home, and I've been committed and dedicated to Old Haberdashers rugby ever since then. After leaving the school, I went to Birmingham University and then on to Nottingham Law School, but I always came back regularly to play for Old Haberdashers and to help them out when they were short. The club was established in 1923, and so this year we celebrate our 90th anniversary as well. And the club remains a friendly place where Haberdashers can continue to play rugby in the blue, white and magenta amongst like-minded spirits. The club's had mixed fortunes during my 12 years of involvement, and we almost didn't make it to this point. At the dawn of the professional rugby in 2001, the club was forced to withdraw mid-season from the Hearts Middlesex League. Dwindling availability finally meant we could not put a side out. The remaining players and members huddled both on and off the field and resolved that they simply could not let the club, its name and its proud spirit die. The very next season, the first 15 achieved the club's first ever league promotion, and the club is indebted to the hard work put in by Dan Mitchell and Costi Carianis during those wilderness years. The decision to not go quietly into night and to survive displayed the indomitable spirit that was forged on the playing fields of Elstree, and that has become the trademark of our club ever since. Since that dark age, we have gone from strength to strength, and between 2008 and 2012, the first 15 achieved 4 successive league promotions. And following promotion last season into London, from London North West 2, having had an almost unbeaten season into London 1 this season, we finished mid-table as discussed earlier. For the record, I should make it clear that the first of those promotions was forged in the classrooms of the school rather than on the rugby pitch, when then skipper Dan Mitchell, a 2000 school leaver, was first to reply to an email from the RFU following a proposed reorganisation of the leagues. This efficiency of admin meant we got promoted in preference to HAC, who had finished above us in the league that season. I understand the Merchant Taylor's educated skipper of HAC is still bitter about that. With our commitment to not training midweek and not having a coach, in the modern era of professionalism, the club cuts a distinctly amateur figure, but this is something on which we're fiercely proud. Nothing gives us more pleasure than beating sides who train twice a week, pay their players, and have approximately 4 coaches. We believe we have a unique model, and as far as we are aware, we're the highest placed team in any league in England who don't train midweek. Where we go from here, I can't say for certain. Some people think we found our level, but I wouldn't be a haberdasher if I didn't believe we couldn't push on from here. And I'll continue to drive this club forward to the best of my abilities. As an old haberdasher wordsmith would say, whatever may await us, through the glory and the pain, we'll still be old haberdashers, and we still won't bloody train. So, going forward, if you know anyone who would be interested in playing for the club, especially if they went to the school, please get in touch. If you've run out of friends to have a beer with on a Saturday afternoon, come on down and get involved in the roaring old fart scene. And if anyone has deep pockets and would like some prominent branding on a tight rugby shirt, definitely get in touch. On Saturday the 20th of July this summer, we're hosting the second annual Alumni Sevens Rugby and Tag competition at the school. Last summer was a huge success, and this summer it will be an even bigger and better occasion. So please come on down, bring your families, but particularly bring your old school friends, and make it an alumni celebration to be remembered. I'd like to say a personal thank you to the Old Haberdashers Association for supporting the club through thick and thin. We would not be where we are today without your invaluable support.
Yeah.
As well as the support of the Old Haberdashers Association as an organisation, we're also hugely indebted to numerous individuals within that organisation, not least Martin Baker, who unfortunately can't be here tonight. I'm equally proud and humble to be part of this incredible organisation, and I hope we continue to do the OHA proud on the field. And on that note, please be upstanding. Grow old with me, the best is yet to be. I'd like to offer a toast to the worshipful company of Haberdashers, the school governor, and the school. Cheers.
Very involving, picture perfect. Thank you very much. It's now my great pleasure to introduce the school captain, JJ Dixon, to reply to the speech. Continuing the traditions of a wide-ranging and, for us mere mortals, frankly infuriating excellence, not only is JJ's academic record spotless, but he also finds time to compete in charity triathlons, a competition to design a space station where the school were runners up, and in Model United Nations where JJ himself scooped a highly commended award. Having sat next to him all evening, I can attest to the fact that he's an all-round good guy, though sadly he suffers from one major drawback, namely that he's in Calvert's. Please welcome the school captain, JJ Dixon.
Well, thank you, Andrew. Mr. President, First Warden, honoured guests, ladies and gentlemen. I must begin by thanking you for inviting me to dine with you tonight on this wonderful evening. It is both remarkable to find myself in such good company away from home and reassuring to know that although we may leave Haberdashers' green and pleasant lands of Elstree, we will forever be Habs boys. However, as the phrase goes, there is no such thing as a free lunch, and the real snag came when I found out I would be making this speech. Reading the supposed title of this speech was just like reading the title of an A-level history essay. It read, "The reply to a toast," and what a wonderful toast I may add, thank you Seb, to the worshipful company of Haberdashers. Well, I can't do that, I thought. The school governors. By this stage the fear was rising inside me. I know nothing about the school governors. And lastly, it said, the school. Aha! My revision had paid off. I do know something about the school. And so tonight it is my job to assure you that Habs is still the vibrant and exciting place that you left, perhaps even more so. Speaking to a group of ex-Haberdashers, I guess I ought to mention something about the houses and how they are doing. Meadows are fighting hard to win their 7th consecutive Crossman and Dunton Shield victories. Ooh. Quite how random selection process has achieved this result is remarkable. Suggestions range from steroids to steroids. Indeed, all the other houses have had to console themselves in that they are producing gentlemen, although, looking at my friends, the evidence of that is yet to be forthcoming. I shall not mention anything about the other end of the spectrum, like which house has been struggling for form for the past decade, for fear of offending people, as I guess at least some of you here must have been in joblings. Calvert's house, which I'm in, has changed its colour from navy blue to fluorescent orange. Calm down, calm down. The senior boys and our housemistress were quick to coin the term Orange Revolution to describe the seemingly effortless success Calvert's is currently top of the Crossman, which has accompanied the fact that we now have a lot more to prove considering the new colour of our house. Over the course of the year, the real meaning of Orange Revolution slowly began to filter through. Apparently Calvert's is now the house which protests against rigged elections in Ukraine. Perhaps not quite the effect we were going for. You will of course be pleased to hear that Habs remains competitive on the sports field. Various teams have had some remarkable seasons. 2 water polo age groups have made it to the national finals again this year. Our shooting team are top shots in Hertfordshire, and the first 11 cricket team are informed to repeat last season's remarkable record of 9 wins and 3 losses. Old rivalries are continued. The football team narrowly beat St Albans School 4-3 on penalties in the final of a national competition this year at the Underhill Stadium in Barnet, in front of a crowd of some 500 spectators. The rugby score did not quite go the same way, with the first 15 losing by 3 points, and the second 15 a considerable amount more, despite the skill and dedication of our players. Sorry, Seb. I would, however, like to share an anecdote from that game. It was in a scrum, which we hadn't quite got right, and we were going backwards at quite some speed, and their captain, who was a big brute, he was their number 8, shouted, "Well up, lads." They have no reply to that. To which the reply came from our side of the scrum. "You obviously haven't seen the A-level league tables then." And the humour is probably the thing that I will miss most about Habs. Forget the academics for 1 second, although I can assure you those are doing quite fine. My time at Habs has been made by the ability of people to see the funny side of everyday life, whether it be falling into the Assault Course Lake in mid-December, or getting lost in Berlin on a history trip, and ending up in the Potsdamer Platz at night, which is notorious for being home to one of the world's oldest professions. And I think this ability to laugh at ourselves makes the school the friendly and welcoming place that it is. I think that I really can say good morning to everyone in my year, as everyone is incredibly sociable. In fact, the entire sixth form, both years, get on really well together in the common room, which in many other schools would be segregated by year. Habs has played a great part in developing these well-rounded young men, the house system in particular. It is heartwarming when younger boys in year 7 and 8 say hello just because they know you are in their house. And you get that same feeling here. Attending this dinner of the Old Haberdashers Association cannot but have reinforced the feeling of solidarity and community between those, whether pupils or staff, past or present. I would like to thank you all for reminding me of one very important fact, which I shall definitely slip into my end-of-year address to the leavers. No matter what we do in the years after next Wednesday, no matter how different lives we end up leading, geographically or professional, we will always be Haberdashers. In fact, no, we will be better than that. We will always be Habs boys. So thank you.
JJ, thank you, but in a way, you want to say we are the Canada, having you join our ranks as old Haberdashers very soon. Thank you. And now, to propose the terms of the association, I'm delighted and privileged to hear from Ben Gunn. Ben joined the Metropolitan Police in 1962 on leaving the Judd School in Tonbridge. He spent most of his time in special grants, writing to Commander, dealing with counter-espionage, subversion and terrorism. It was in this role that, in 1988, he led the investigation into the bombing of Pan Am Flight 103 over Lockerbie. He transferred to Cambridgeshire in 1991 and became the Chief Constable for 8 years until his retirement from the force in 2002. Ben is now an independent regulatory director of the British Horse Racing Authority and has been very closely connected with the ongoing investigation into the Godolphin stable, which has been in the news just recently. His crime experience and sporting interests have combined perfectly to give a varied and international dimension, including a review of integrity in professional tennis worldwide and a cross-industry government report on integrity in sports betting. Ben continues to provide expert guidance in sports security and gambling, currently working with the Qatari International Centre for Sports Security and the Sorbonne University in Paris. Ben is not just a keen supporter of all sports, but a participant too. He ran the London Marathon in 1990, but far more importantly, is a past player and member of the OHRFC. Yeah. And has played on the hallowed turf at Croxdale Road. Ladies and gentlemen, settle back for an engaging and entertaining speech from Ben Gunn.
Well, Mr. President, First Warden, Madam Mayor, honoured guests, ladies and gentlemen, could I first of all start by thanking you, President, for inviting me to address your dinner tonight, and in particular to propose the toast to the old Haberdashers Association on this, your 125th anniversary. It's a great honour for me, an old Juddian, to be asked to propose the toast in respect of your association. It's a great school. I have got the scars on my back from rugby games against the old Haberdashers, both playing for them and against them, I may say. I have to say that it's magnificent to be able to propose this toast in such a wonderful setting as Haberdashers Hall. And First Warden, thank you for allowing us to use your hall this evening. And it is also a great pleasure for me to be amongst so many old boys of the school. A school which has produced such luminaries as Lord Leon Britton, Lord Toby Harris, Damon Hill, Alan Wicker, not to mention Tony Alexander and Frankie Judge. And of course, President, yourself, as a distinguished alumnus of this school. I understand, sir, that you speak 5 languages, which is magnificent when some of us struggle with one, particularly after a claret or two. And I have to say that I'm sure that all the old boys here this evening and the guest join me in congratulating you on being nominated the president of the association in such an auspicious year, your 125th anniversary. In addition to your language ability, you have had a distinguished business career in the UK, in Europe, and in Latin America. But I suppose the high spot of your career, or one of the high spots of your career, has been the pivotal role that you and your company played in conjunction with LOCOG in providing the opening and closing ceremonies of the Olympic Games last year, which were such a magnificent success, steered by Lord Seb Taylor. And I am conscious, President, that you would rather hope that Lord Seb Taylor would be able to propose this toast this evening. But unfortunately, he wasn't available, and nor were other couple of leaking lords. So I am honoured to be subbing for Lord Taylor tonight, and I just hope I can do the great man justice. I did, in fact, bump into Seb Taylor last year. We were standing at Lord's Cricket Ground, waiting to go in to watch an MCC game. And I'd been chatting to Seb for about 20 minutes, waiting for the gate to open. And then the gate opened and we got to the Jobsworth on the gate, and he looked at Seb Coe's ticket and he said, "I'm awfully sorry, sir, but you're at the wrong entrance. Your entrance is the next one, 100 yards down the road." Well, Seb, having queued for 20 minutes like the rest of us, was slightly nonplussed, but being the gentleman that he is, he whispered quietly to the Jobsworth. He said, "But do you know who I am? I'm Lord Seb Cohen, the Olympic athlete." In which case, said the Jobsworth, "it won't take you long to get the 100 yards down the road to the next entrance." President, I am aware, when Andrew gave me strict instructions for this speech, that he said there's only one rule: keep it short, 15 minutes maximum. And I agree with that. I think it's a great rule. And I am reminded of the words of that eminent 19th century German philosopher Ernst Haeckel, who once wrote that no man should speak for longer than he can make love. Well, President, having just celebrated my 69th birthday last year, I think 15 minutes could be stretching it, but we'll do our best and see how it goes. Of course, I am very conscious that after dinner speaking these days is fraught with dangers. There are perils afoot. And when the dulcet tones of Tony Alexander asked me after a night on 5 pints of Orange Boom and a Vindaloo whether I'd do him a favour, I was reluctant actually to say no, because he's a friend. I hadn't seen him for 25 years, so I thought I'll say yes, and here I am. But I should have realised at a very early stage that I'm not really cut out for public speaking, and I should have realised this in the 5th form of my old school, Judd School in Tunbridge, when I was appearing in the school play, which was Shakespeare's Hamlet, when unfortunately I misunderstood a stage direction which read, "Enter Ophelia from the rear." Now, sadly, Ophelia was a rather nubile 4th former at the time, which would have been bad enough. But I rather compounded the felony the following year, again appearing in the school production of Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream, when I misread a stage instruction this occasion which said, "Puck off." So I did, and I was never invited back. Now, I do apologise for those that may have misunderstood or misheard that last comment, or not realised that Puck is in fact a character in A Midsummer's Night Dream. But it's one of the perils of after-dinner speaking. And I well recall in my previous life as Commander Special Branch, when I had actually been chairman of the European Police Working Group on Terrorism for some 4 years. And I was leaving to go to Cambridgeshire, so I had to give up that role. And kindly, the working group actually had thrown a dinner for me in Athens because the Greek chairman was taking over from me, and I was giving a speech in response to a farewell speech from the Greeks. And I was saying how much I'd enjoyed my 4 years in the group, how much I thought we'd contributed to stopping terrorism in Europe, which was then largely Irish terrorism. And I wished the Greek chairman well. And I said not to worry about me because tomorrow I'd be out of sight, out of mind. To wit, the Greek delegation fell about laughing, which I was slightly concerned about because it was meant to be a sincere comment, until after the dinner, I'd found out that the Greek interpreter had translated "out of sight, out of mind" as "invisible idiot." So standing before you as an invisible idiot, President, have to say that another peril of after-dinner speaking, particularly those that don't speak 5 languages, is forming your lips around the words when you've had such a magnificent ceremony as you have tonight and entertained us so royally. And I'm reminded of when I was chairman of the British Police rugby team. We actually took the team over to Southern Ireland to play Angada Chicana. We won a very narrow game, and I was responding on behalf of the guests, or due to, at the after-dinner banquet. or the after-game banquet, and before that I was in the bar, and the chairman of the Irish police rugby team introduced me to that quaint old Irish pastime called Kerry Roulette. We were playing down the deepest county Kerry. Now, for those of you that are not familiar with Kerry Roulette, it's where two people go into a darkened room, each carrying a bottle of Blackbush, which is pretty strong Irish whiskey. I'm told if you haven't got Blackbush, Jameson's or Paddy's will do. But you then both sit down in this darkened room, you both consume your bottle of Blackbush, one gets up and leaves the room, and the other one has to guess who's gone out. Now, and I was the one that actually went out. So President, I am aware tonight that on your auspicious 125th anniversary, you have invited ladies, our wives, partners and girlfriends, to attend your dinner tonight. And I have to say, and I'm sure all the chaps here will join with me in saying that how much they've added to the decorum of the occasion and the glamour. Ladies, it's great to see you. I know there has been a little bit of contest in terms of whether or not ladies should be invited, but I have to say it's made the evening for me, and I'm sure it has for the other gents, and I hope it has for the ladies, but I haven't finished yet. I've always, of course, thought that the ladies are the stronger of the two human species, and I'm reminded of this when I was Chief Constable of Cambridgeshire. I made a visit to Cambridge Police Station, which is at the edge of Parker's Piece, which is an open bit of land. An 82-year-old lady came in to say that she'd just been mugged on Parker's Piece, and apparently what had happened, she was walking across Parker's Piece with two full Sainsbury's shopping bags, when a yob on a skateboard swept up behind her, swept the full bag from her right hand and went off. Mercifully, she wasn't hurt, she'd been knocked over, but she was saying, you know, I really do wonder why he took the bag in my right hand, because the bag in my left hand had all the Sainsbury's shopping, but on my way home I was picking up all the dog's muck from Parker's Piece, and in fact the bag in my right hand was full of dog's poop. And she said, I often wondered how he was going to cook that. I suspect Delia probably had a recipe for it. But I'm also very conscious that our ladies have a knack of saying the right thing at the right time. And I am reminded of my early days as a detective sergeant in Special Branch when I was on protection with Robert Carr, the then Home Secretary, later Lord Carr, just down the road from Elstree at Hadley Green. Sadly died last year, but I was actually looking after Robert Carr after the Angry Brigade had put a bomb down at his house in Hadley Green. Some of the older members here will remember that. And in actual fact, I was in the Conservative Party conference up in Blackpool at the Imperial Hotel, accompanied by my colleague Jack Russell. And Jack, who was a senior member, had deputed me to actually take the Home Secretary and his wife down to the end of conference dinner, which was a grand occasion, and he would join us later. So I'm standing outside room 601 of the Imperial Hotel in Blackpool. Black tie, medal, looking immaculate, when I heard Robert Carr and his wife coming along the corridor, accompanied by Ted Heath, who was then the Prime Minister, Willie Whitelaw, who was Lord President, Leader of the House, and his wife, and Lord Carrington, who was then Foreign Secretary, and his wife. And as they drew very close to me, I was conscious of the door behind me opening, and Jack, my colleague, ripped off a very loud wind and shut the door. I am left in no man's land, because it's down to me, isn't it? Half of Her Majesty's government and think I've just trumped in front of them, and I am standing there thinking only of those immortal words of the Mayor of Hiroshima. What the bloody hell was that? And Mrs. Carr could see my huge embarrassment and broke the ice by saying, I trust that's made room for dinner, Ben. Now, I have to say that sorry, President. It's not long to go. I know that there are a number of rugby players here tonight from the old Habs, and as you know, I have featured in the veterans side with Mr. Alexander and a few others, and I'm proud to say that rugby's played a great part in my life, both as far as the old Juddians are concerned, the Metropolitan Police and the British Police subsequently. I've had some wonderful times playing rugby, as all rugby players will know, and I do congratulate the rugby team for actually consolidating their position halfway up London North 1, and as you've said, without a coach and without regular training. Now that's old boys rugby as I used to know it. But I think it's magnificent that you've managed to achieve that. Also, I understand you've just had a very successful one-game tour to France at the weekend. A one-game tour. I think you were 22 all with 10 minutes to go and lost 46-22. That's old boys rugby. And I have to say, whether that's possibly a lack of training or a surfeit of Pernod, I don't know. But 10 minutes to go, lads, 16 points. Do better next year. I am reminded, and my last anecdote is about when I played for the Metropolitan Police. We were actually playing Paris Police in the old Stade Colombe in the early 60s. It was always a brutal game, and the sisses in the threes, and I was a centre three-quarter, never saw the ball till at least half-time, while the forwards sorted themselves out, knocking 6 spout out of one another. And that was exactly what happened in this game. And we had a very tall, 6'9", second row called Dinger Bell. Simple lad, not the sharpest tool in the box, not very big, but very tall. And he was also the European Police heavyweight boxing champion, and he had a mean right-hand punch. Anyhow, first half, no ball and the three-quarters, and at half-time, Dinger was complaining to a hard-bitten old number 8 we had called Harry Scott, who was an old East End copper. Some of the older members here may remember him. He played for Eastern Counties for a number of years. And Harry said to him, Dinger, first opportunity you get, salt him, chin him, give him one. Right? Okay, we heard this and we thought the ball's going to come out to the threes very shortly. Second half came when this CRS man heaved him out every time. When line-outs were line-outs in those days, chaps, heaved him out every time. We never saw any ball. And then we lost fairly heavily, if I remember rightly. And we were at the after-game banquet, and the French authorities had sat us opposite our opposing numbers. So Dinger was opposite the CRS man, I was opposite my centre, which is probably the nearest I'd got to him all game, actually. And then all of a sudden they just served the onion soup. There was a bang and a clatter, and Dinger had leant across and drawn off this second row one, a perler of a right-hander, collapsed into his onion soup. What the bloody hell'd you do that for, Dinger? Well, Harry said at half-time, first opportunity you get, chin it. It's the first opportunity I had because he kept heaving me out. Poor old Dinger. As I say, unfortunately, the poor lad committed suicide. He jumped off of a multi-storey building much shortly after that, to say not the sharpest tool in the box. But having said that, President, I am aware that, and I am very conscious of the 10 minutes that Andrew has said. I'm more conscious of the 15 minutes in respect of Ernst Haeckel's words, because I don't want to give any of the ladies here false impressions of an inflated ability of mine. And it is now time for me to actually propose the toast. But just before I do, thank you again for inviting me. Thank you for bringing me out. Bringing me out of retirement for one positively last performance. In fact, some of you may not have known that Tony's not been too well lately. Whether it was the pressure of asking me to speak and wondering what I was going to say, I'm not sure. But Maggie was actually quite worried, his wife, and said, look, I think you better go to the doctor. You're suffering a bit of stress. So he goes to the doctor. The doctor asks him a couple of questions. Well, Tony said, what's the first time you open your bladder in the morning? 7 o'clock, doctor, regular as clockwork. And your bowels? 7:30, doctor, regular as clockwork. Well, that seems to be in order, Tone. What seems to be the problem? He said, well, I don't get up till 8 o'clock. And actually, I'm staying at his place tonight, so I'm keeping out of his room. President, First Warden, Madam Mayor, honoured guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great privilege and honour for me to now propose the toast to the Old Haberdashers Association in your 125th anniversary year. The Old Haberdashery Association.
Thank you, Ben.
Ben, brilliant.
If we're going to trade running anecdotes about time, let me remind you about Einstein's quotation about relativity. In layman's terms, relativity is this: if you have your hand on a hot stove, 1 minute is eternity. If you're sitting next to a pretty girl, 1 minute is a second. And similarly, the length of your speech then was just 1 second tonight. Thank you very much. And now for the presidential reply from Colin Blessley. Colin left school in 1965 to read Spanish and Portuguese at the University of Bristol, which served him well over 35 years of restructuring experience in Europe and Latin America and across the globe. Colin was an advisor to the UK Financial Services Authority and for 10 years led PricewaterhouseCoopers' Spanish corporate finance and restructuring activities, and for 5 years was co-leader of their restructuring practice across Latin America. His most recent role, has already been alluded to, is something we can all be thankful for. Last summer's Olympics were a roaring, surprising success and immediately silenced all the cynics, me included. Well, as Finance and Commercial Director of London 2012 Ceremonies Limited, a subsidiary of Locol which delivered the opening and closing ceremonies for both the Olympic and Paralympic Games, this is in no small part down to Colin. Those with good eyesight and a keen eye for detail will have spotted in the list of past presidents on the menu that both Colin's uncle Donald and father Ken Blessley. It's no exaggeration to say that Ken was an absolute linchpin of the association across decades and is sorely missed. And so it gives me the greatest pleasure to introduce a man with not just the OHA, but tonight also half a bottle of wine in his blood. He is our president, Colin Blessley.
Thank you, Andrew. Your Worship, First Warden, Headmaster, honoured guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Ben, for your certainly entertaining words. And I think some of your side swipes about Sebco, probably I'll take them in the spirit in which they were intended. And I think probably with someone of your calibre, any potential comeback on your side is probably something I don't want to know about. All this talk about spooks and the like is extremely worrying. It's very hard to describe the pleasure that it is to be president of this association in its 125th year. It's quite something. But I have to say that compared to the company and the school, we are mere youngsters, obviously. We do have a lot of history with us tonight, and I think it's relevant and important to mention that we have a past president here who has been past president twice. That is, I think, unique. Philip Alterman was president of the association when we celebrated our centenary in 1988. He had been president of the association 15 years earlier. So history indeed accompanies us tonight. And also, we have history in the person of Keith Dawson, who that same year was appointed headmaster of the school. And I believe that we are also accompanied by another 12 OH, who I think were all capable of standing when I proposed the toast to those who were here 25 years ago. I think a number of mentions have been made about the novelty this evening, relative novelty, that we have our ladies and guests as guests this evening. I think it's wonderful to have you here, those of you who've put up and endured the vagaries of our OH occupations. And thank you so much for your support. And certainly we hope that we'll be able to invite you back to these surroundings in the not too distant future. Thank you again. One couple who I do miss this evening are the Corals. Sadly, John and his wife are in Munich tonight, but John really was the president for 2 years before I took over, and who laid the foundations for a lot of what we're trying to achieve in the course of my presidency. Thank you, John. I think the association's conscious of the fact that it needs to move with the times, and certainly Bob Dylan got it right. The times are changing. If those of you can remember actually when that song came out and heard it on the radio, then I think that's an eloquent support of that particular proposition. So we need to move with the times, and I think we need to broaden our appeal in terms of our membership, in terms of what we offer, and also we need to, I think, focus on, should we say, rejuvenating the age profile of our membership. No offence intended to those present. And also I think it's important that we endeavour to become a family inclusive type of organisation. I can remember when I was a young lad, together with my brother, I think probably virtually every Saturday of the year we were at Croxdale Road. Yeah. And that's because there was something happening there that actually we as kids could enjoy. And it wasn't just the bangers cooked by someone over a very decrepit barbecue the day of the 7-a-sides. So I think this year, our 125th year, we're endeavouring to do a number of things, and I think Seb alluded earlier to the 7-a-side jamboree at the school on the 20th of July, plug, and that is an occasion which we are broadening in terms of inviting all members of the association and their families to join us, and hopefully we'll have a great turnout. And thank you very much, Peter, for hosting us on your hallowed turf. We're also reintroducing a time-honoured event, which was, some would say, invented by Basil Blowfield. Back in 1965, Basil introduced the first decade dinner. Well, he thought it was the first, but actually I have it on reliable source that there was a decade dinner held in 1913, and that was for the 1880 decade levers. So I think we have left it a little less long in terms of reinventing that particular time-honoured event. And the next one, no coincidence, it's the 1960s decade, which just so happens to coincide with the decade that I left school, is being held at the clubhouse on the 5th of June. Those of you who are 1960 leavers and haven't signed up yet, spaces are limited, so please don't delay. One of the important things that we're working on, and I'm delighted that Peter Hamilton here, headmaster of the school, is with us tonight, is the strengthening of our relationship with the school, and working together as equal partners to produce some interesting events which I think will help broaden the appeal to that population of former pupils. And Peter, there's an awful lot we can do, and I think we've got some good ideas, and you'll be hearing more about that in the not too distant future. I don't think we're going to try and repeat some of the things that used to happen. My father reminded me that the HOBC, as it used to be called, used to have amateur dramatic nights at the clubhouse on a Saturday. I don't think there are many of you actually here who probably remember those, but they certainly sounded quite hilarious, even though they were intentioned to be quite serious. More latterly, and probably Peter Vacher will remember this because I think he was probably instrumental in organising some of it, was the Saturday night disco at Croxdale Road. What I can remember was that there was a tremendous atmosphere, a real sort of heady mix of beer fumes, cigarette smoke, ladies' perfumes and embrocation. Not necessarily in that order. All this accompanied by a travelling disco which was actually run by the young boyfriend of the daughter of my next door neighbour. It was actually quite good. The amazing thing was that they were very, very, very fully attended, and the even more amazing thing was that everybody drove home afterwards, which is probably quite frightening. So I think in certain respects it's probably a good thing the clock can't be turned back. Seb, I think, has alluded to sporting success, and very eloquently too. The rugby club, from, as he mentioned, almost being extinct, like the phoenix has risen from the ashes, and I think it's tremendous that we've got to the level of promotion that we have. We are middle of the table in that top division, and I think it's incredible that we can actually do it without training, and that's how it used to be. I can certainly remember the likes of Dick Cook and certain others, myself included, who probably have a quick cigarette before we went onto the field. But no, it's wonderful that the rugby is doing so well. I suppose we'll never get back to the stage where I certainly can recall fielding 7-15s every Saturday throughout the season, which is quite something. We have a strong cricket side who play regularly, weather permitting, obviously a major problem in this country. We also have an important group running the cricket, and I think we should also note that there is an event at the school which is our annual cricket match on the 30th of June, so hopefully as many of you as possible will turn up to support an excellent event. Unbeknownst to you many, may potentially we have an association football side. Owen Broderick, who is the leader of that group, is also heading up a very successful football side, and our golfers and riflemen continue to make their mark. No pun intended. I think one of the great pleasures for me this year was actually being part of the organisation that produced the OH Notes. I hope all of you have seen them, and if you haven't, you should make sure you get hold of a copy. The OH Notes latest edition is focused on the Olympics, and it relates OH connections with the Olympics, whether they be as sportsmen or whether they be as administrators. A number of judges, etc., are also referred to there. It's a great read. Alan Newman edited this edition, as he has a number of others before that. A lot of copy was provided by John Wigley, and a lot of the, shall we say, graphic material was presented by Keith Cheney. So all of those are here present tonight. You did a great job. It's a wonderful document. For those of you who are moderately computer literate like myself, we do have a well-populated website, and I would encourage you to consult it. It was originally set up by Alan Phipps, and is currently being honed by Martin Baker, who, as mentioned earlier, is unable to be here tonight. He's in Turkey. But it's all funded by the inimitable W.R. Tanner Memorial Fund. I'm sure Nobley would be delighted to know that the fund that is set up in his name based on untipped cigarettes probably is doing so well. There is a corner at Croxdale Road next to the bar where Tanner used to sit every Saturday night smoking his untipped cigarettes until the wee hours. I think it's important also to recall that Haberdashers were very proud of our Hertsmere roots. We've been at Croxdale Road since the mid-1930s, and of course our presence in Hertsmere, it wasn't called that in those days, but it was reinforced by the schools joining us as neighbours in Elstree in 1961. Indeed, I think some of the removal men, they refer to themselves as such, and who regularly meet for, I think, imbibing basically, are here this evening. And these were people who actually helped the move from Westbere Road to Elstree. I think Messrs. Jakeman, Alexander, Skinner, and one or two others. I think it's great pleasure for me that we actually have tonight here the Worshipful, the Mayor of Hertsmere, Councillor Pat Strack, and her husband Jeff. We look forward to continuing to be good citizens of Hertsmere, and certainly we hope that this will pay off in terms of frozen council tax bills.
No such thing as a free lunch.
In conclusion, I'd like to thank Andrew Tarpey for his excellent organisation. Every year, Andrew, you seem to set the bar higher, and yet again you surpassed yourself in, dare I say it, a true Olympian manner. I suppose my question is, how much higher can the bar be raised next year? Thank you again. I have to say that Ben's entertainment was extremely enjoyable. And I have to say that I'm extremely grateful that Seb Co had to be in Sheffield tonight. Now, as is customary, I'm reliably informed that the proceedings will now continue outside, and for those of you who prefer slightly more, shall we say, basic surroundings, at the Right Reverend and Right Honourable Bishop's Finger, just around the corner. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, everybody, and have a great rest of the evening. Thank you.